Post is on.
Hi, Allie.
Hi. Okay. Seeing if my login worked. Did you see this? Select yes. Well, Allie hopefully heard me say that I heard her. Yes. I don't know. I'm taking it. How do I answer the question? Allie, I heard you. I don't think we know how to answer questions. Brooke and I figured out that we're Google Hangout novices. Okay, this is awesome. Let me see if people can see us. I'm just looking at, it says it's live, and hopefully people can see us. Can somebody type if they see us? Okay, got it. Okay, click the button to hang out.
I think you're the only one getting...
I'm the only one getting questions, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I think because I have the control screen.
Yeah. Okay,
that makes sense though. So I'll read out loud the questions that we get. I just am not sure how to, oh, here we go. Megan Byrne is here. Beth Bernstein's here, but all I see is, okay, people are logged in and they're not seeing us. Okay. Hello, Megan Burns is hello. Can anybody see us yet? Because when I look at the preview, it looks like people can see us. Okay, 1 second. Oh, I think it looks like it's working now. Is it working now? I'm sorry, I'm doing a little refresh to see. Start, wait.
I'm gonna send this to you. Will you try to log in?
Okay. I think it seems like it's working. Crap.
Allie, ask Allie to text. Allie, can you text one of us to let us know if you can see us? Please.
I'm texting her now.
Everyone's probably laughing hysterically at us.
I know. I'm like, can you see us? Great.
We're live, so I'm pretty sure everyone can see us. So
I think people can see us, and if not, it's recording it, so it'll be on YouTube. We'll have the video to post later. It seems like people can see us, but I'm not sure. Okay, so I thought the best place for us to start would be you kind of starting from the beginning and what you were up to before, and then what motivated you to change, and kind of how you managed to do that.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, like most planners and how we all started out, I mean, there's a couple planners that have been doing the percentage model for a long time, but I was always a flat fee because that's what I knew. All the companies I worked for prior, anything that I did, it was a flat fee. And I always kept wanting to fit in my market and be able to be competitive with the other planners in my market. And so I was charging anywhere from, at first when I started my business, I was doing a day of partial service and full service planning. Yeah. And it was always 3 different services.
Yes.
And then about 5 years ago, I transitioned where I started only doing full service, and I brought on an associate, Heather, to do day of and partial. And
right.
we've always been a flat fee. So, in my market, most flat fee planners for full service were $7,500 to $12,500.
Yeah, I would sounds about right. Yeah.
In the Orange County market, we're so resort driven. So it's like there's 4 hotels here.
Yeah.
And the planners that work at the hotels we're in between that point. Until I started going to Engage and realizing that my geographic location wasn't necessarily my clientele or what I wanted to attract or what type of events that I wanted to do. Yeah. I was stuck in this, like, how do I move on from this? I'm on this flat fee. I feel like I'm offering such a bigger, better service for my clients than these other planners. They're more of a checklist kind of planner, and I'm more of a full service concierge style planner. So I'm thinking, I'm doing 400 hours of work on a wedding to 500 hours a week work on a wedding. And these other planners are like, oh, I can do a wedding in 40 hours. And I'm like, and you're getting paid when I'm getting paid. So I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. So after going to Engage and having so many amazing people tell me over the last 3 years, you need to switch to a percentage, I was terrified. Yeah. I was like, there's absolutely no way that I can be the only one in my geographic market that can make this fly. So, and the crazy thing is, let me rewind. Being in Southern California, our typical weddings, due to the venues here, right. I wasn't doing anything under $250,000, and I was doing 15 to 20 weddings a year that were between $250 and over $1 million and getting paid $12,500 full service.
Right. Yes.
So
okay. I want to say one thing about why I was afraid of the percentage model, and this is what I thought was so great, is that Calder Clark told me about this years ago, but the way that Calder did it is that every time they would go over budget or they'd increase the budget, she'd have to sit with them and have them sit down and sign something. And I was like, oh my God, the idea of having that conversation 900 million times feels so stressful to me that, like, in addition to the idea of being the only one, it was also this, like, it felt burdensome, even though obviously it's more profitable. But go on, I just wanted to throw that out there. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always kept thinking of myself as my market doesn't do it. My geographic market does not do that. So it took me going to Engage. I mean, I'm going to be a 10 baller next time, which I'm so excited about. But it took me going to Engage for several times, and different people that I really admire in our industry, Amy Zaroff or Joseph Fitzgerald, or all these other people telling me over and over, you have to go to a percentage model because of the level of service you provide. Now, I don't expect every planner that just plans, that they don't design whatever, to go to this percentage model, because it might not be right for them. It depends on the type of work they're providing, what they're doing, who their clientele is, what their location is, whatever it is. So basically, my eyes opened after going to Engage that there's such a bigger world out there than just my little Orange County bubble that I was in. I mean, honestly, I do maybe 1 or 2 weddings in LA, and it's 40 miles from me. So I was really just in this little bubble. So what really got me thinking about this percentage model was, I did a couple really big weddings this last year, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, I could have made so much more money with the time and effort and what I actually did for these events. So I was actually in the pool at Nazook, and Jason Fitzgerald said, we need to have a talk. And I don't know what it was about how she said it to me or what happened really got me thinking about wanting to switch to this percentage model. So now that we're here, this is what happened. That was at Nazook, so that was June of last year, 6-7 months ago. So basically, she does a little different than I do. I think you probably do it a little bit different than I do. But the way that I run the percentage is I do 18% of the overall budget with a $25,000 or $30,000 minimum. It depends. $25,000 minimum if I'm local, $30,000 minimum if I'm destination.
Okay.
So a lot of people are like, well, so for me, $25,000, 18% is a $140,000 wedding.
Right.
What I'm doing, that's a no-brainer, to be honest. So I have the minimum set because, I mean, I just did a wedding for 15 people. So 15 people, they're not going to necessarily spend a $140,000 wedding.
Right. You still, that's right.
But I still have my minimum of 25. So the way that I break it up and the way that I do it is it's a lot different. So I meet with the clients, I get to know them. Our initial consult is a little bit longer. Of course, Heather and I vet them pretty strongly before they get into my office. Once they get into the office or we're Skyping with them or whatever we're doing, I then really dive in deep. I want to see pictures. I want to see what they're doing. Like, do they want a tent? Where are we going to be? Do they love Casa de Pair and tabletop in every picture that they show me? Like, what is it that they like and are going to want? From there, if they decide to move forward with us, so they know our pricing structure, they know our pricing model, they know what we do. If they verbally commit to us, which it has to be a serious verbal, like we're moving forward, I do a full comprehensive budget from start to finish before they even sign my contract. And I will tell you why. The reason I do that is because that gets me to get my percentage, and I know how much I'm going to make on that job. However, yes, in our world, everything changes. They decide to do a tent, and they weren't going to do a tent. They were going to do this. So basically, I do this full comprehensive budget. I personally back out the wedding gown, and I back out accommodations. Some people are getting weird on, like, you're managing all the room blocks, you're handling all that stuff. Why don't you keep that in? I'm not there yet, to be honest. So I back out accommodations and I back out wedding dress. And then I put together the full comprehensive budget. Everything, like every possible thing you can think about. Gratuities, welcome bags. I mean, everything you can think about is in this budget. I calculate the 18%, then plug in the dress and the accommodations number, and then the client signs off on the budget, and it's stated in my contract that that is what the minimum fee of mine is going to be. So they committed to a $400,000 wedding. This was the fee, and that's what they do. I do have a sliding scale. So it depends on the job, the situation, and the budget, but I give my clients anywhere from a $20,000 to a $50,000 leeway. So it's not nickeling and diming the client. Yes, of course, going over by 20 or 50,000, depending on the budget, it's going to happen, right? So instead of nickel and diming them and recalculating the 18% every single time, that's not how it works. So I split it up in 4 payments. So I do 30% at the time of booking, 20% 2 different times throughout the process, and then the additional 30% or whatever that final number will be as the final payment a month before.
Right.
The great thing about having 4 payments that I have found that has really been amazing for me is that I actually put together an Excel spreadsheet grid from January through December. And I look and see what months I don't have much money coming in, and I can plug different payment amounts from different clients into different months. And that's been amazing for me to be able to spread out.
We've done it that way for a really long time, actually. Like in terms, I've always taken between 3 and 4 payments. Like it depends a little bit, but like I've actually been doing 25 since we've gone to this model. I've been doing pretty much 25, like almost evenly to the estimate. But I do think that that's interesting because it does give you, it's better in a sense to backload it because it covers a lot more of your staffing expenses, which is one of my questions for about how you do it. It's like, do you now include in that? So like when I was flat fee, that didn't necessarily include more than like our base, what I call standard staffing, right? Because like a staffing plan would usually scale up to whatever the circumstances of the wedding are. But now I've actually found that I haven't been charging them for additional staffing because I feel like I'm justifying not doing it. Maybe I'm screwing myself in this manner, but like I feel like by charging something that scales up to their budget, I'm almost like accounting for that within what I'm doing. Like I guess like because if they're if for the way that I see it is like especially on the East Coast, 2 locations is just like a totally different price point than 1 location here. Right. So like usually that's when most of my staffing gets crazy, right? It's like when we're in multiple locations and I'm managing a lot of transportation. So I don't know, I'm curious how you've been managing additional staffing fees or if that's still an add-on on top of your 18%.
So in our business plan for this year and this new pricing model, we are now going to stay on property no matter where the event is for 2 nights. So
Okay.
For me, it's really important because we are doing welcome parties and we are doing brunches, and that's just every single one of our clients have hired us on for 3 days. And I'll get into pricing on that too.
No, but I guess my question is more like within what you're paying your staff. Like,
I'm getting there. So with that, if it's local, we're just absorbing it, to be honest. If we can drive there, if it's local, we're kind of including that in the percentage. If we have to get on an airplane and we need food per diem and we need all of those things, we are charging additional for travel.
Travel. Okay. So wait, I've got another question from Amy Nichols, who's like, she actually wanted to say that she's not currently including staffing, but she bills based on the number of fees. I think I maybe didn't understand that. Maybe that was percentage. She bills based on the percentage of fees. Okay, so one question from Beth Bernstein to go back before we move forward is, when you present that full budget, are you showing them your line item fee and do you get any pushback? I can see that I show them my line item fee, and that's actually when I tell them my fee. I tell them it's 18% and I'm going to work up a budget, and then basically when they get that budget, they see what my fee is, and I've not gotten any pushback. Once we did, and we were actually able to negotiate it based on, they came back to us and said, you're X amount of dollars more than whoever they were talking to, who is the other most expensive person. And he was like, can you come in at blank? And I was like, that's not how it works. And I was basically like, it's a percentage model, so we can deduct like 1.5 points, right? Like, and that felt like a negotiable win. So for us, like, we haven't gotten any pushback, but I'm curious if you've gotten pushback.
Yeah, I think people either get it or they don't, to be honest with you. Once again, because of where I'm located, I'm super fortunate that our clients that we're working with have a lot of money. And they're spending a lot of money in our market, or the people that are reaching out to us. So most of the time when I've been pitching a percentage and talking to them about a percentage, they're like, oh, our lawyers like that, our CPAs like that. Like, they're used to that model because they're surrounded with people that are like that.
Yeah.
However, in the initial conversations, when we say, we always ask them their budget in the first conversation, and we can already tell, like, if they have a $50,000 budget or they have a $100,000 budget and they have 200 guests. Like, there's a lot of ways that it's just, we know it's not the right fit, and that's totally okay. But as far as the people that have been serious, they get it. I haven't had, and I think it's the way you sell it and the way you talk about it. And I think the transparency of having them see the budget first before they sign the contract is exactly why they understand it and they see it. I mean, I know there's a lot of planners that do 15%. We're at 18%. However, in the new model, the percentage structure, we haven't booked anything over $500,000 yet on the percentage. I feel like if once I get to a $500,000 plus wedding, we have a couple 400, 450s, but I feel like if we get to 500, I'm going to have to rethink and maybe go down to 16% or something that's a little bit more palatable. And I'm definitely open to that.
The other thing to say to Beth's question is, I also think that having the minimum changes that a lot too, because you're going into it, if they agree and they want to meet with you and they already know that your minimum is 30, or in some cases our minimum, depending on the season, goes up to 40. So like, it's like, if you're already agreeing to meet with us based on that range, then I don't think that you're gonna, and you're like, it's a percentage of your overall budget, excluding, we also exclude the dress, because, somebody's going to spend $2,000 on a dress and somebody's going to spend 35, right? Like, it's like, it can be what it's going to be. But I feel like if you're already agreeing to that minimum, you're within the ball, like, you're somewhere within you're doing the math also, right? Like, and I think the one thing that I'll say is, like, I definitely feel like it, especially with our clients, and it's probably going to depend market. I think it's going to depend market to market, and it's really your minimum. I actually think I'd say that I think this is a good model for anybody, no matter what you're dealing with, because I do feel that, like, even if you're dealing with lower budgets, what tends to make your guest count go up is the scale of it. And that is still a lot more work for you to manage, even in terms of like transportation, the management of any kind of rentals, that kind of thing. So like, even if your minimum is lower to keep you within the price point where you see your average budget, it is still to your benefit to use the minimum with percentage, in my opinion. Wait, I have more questions. Okay. Beth had the additional question of, I like the term concierge, and what does that mean to you?
So I wanted to get into that. So the reason why I can justify and explain to the client of why we are a percentage of everything is we do everything for the client. That's why we only take 10 events total, not weddings, 10 events total a year. The reason for that is we're building the wedding website for the client. We're tracking all their RSVPs. Our phone number's on the wedding website, so any guests that have questions with travel, accommodations, anything.
Oh my God. You should be charging 20% then. I don't do that.
We are dealing with that. Now, once again, going back, we only get a handful of people that actually take us up on that because they all have their own personal assistants or their own travel agents, and most of these guests have that. But that is why I feel like I can justify a large percentage, because we're doing a lot of work. We are doing a lot of work, and we are managing everything for the client and some for their guests as well. And so for the planners that don't want to do all that, they don't want to track their RSVPs, they don't want to, group their guests into certain things, they don't want to handle transportation, they don't want to do, room blocks, they don't want to do wedding websites, whatever it is, if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but you could charge a lower percentage. You know what I mean? I know some people that are just logistical, they don't design, and they're charging 10% of the overall budget, So I think it's finding the right number for you. It's just, I think what got to me is when Jason looked at me and said, how much do people pay your band to come perform for 4 hours? And I said, oh, we're paying anywhere from $18,000 to $26,000 for a band. And they go, she goes, oh, great. They show up for 4 hours. not saying they're not talented, bands are amazing, but I just worked 400 hours and got paid $12,500.
No,
Totally. 4 hours and made, $25,000. And so that kind of like, I never really looked at it that way. And that's what kind of hit me. But Beth, to answer your question about the concierge, yes, it's a ton of work. I'm super fortunate that I have an amazing, my number one is Heather, and she is amazingly organized and we do everything together. And she is so on top of a lot of those logistical things as well. So I have help, you know what I mean? So I'm not doing it by myself, or I don't think I could offer that level of service.
The one thing I was going to say about, just to go back a little bit to Beth's other question, Beth, you've got so many good questions today, is about that pushing back. What I've actually found is that this is a lot easier to sell than the flat fee, because the flat fee to people seems really arbitrary. And the only thing that then makes it make more sense is when your flat fee is sort of in line with other people's flat fees. But we sit in this kind of weird middle ground, like the way that when we were charging on a flat fee, where we like weren't necessarily as much as like Marcy and Rago, but then we were significantly more than some people that work with a lot of like sort of, they put out sort of junior planners, like, and so they're able to say the same company, but under like at a totally different price point. So we were getting people that were coming to us and saying like, you're double the price of so-and-so, and sort of like being like, well, you're just then sort of saying, but I promise I'm twice as good, like, whereas this, it's like by charging in a totally different way, it sort of makes sense to them. It's like where you're like, I'm the general contractor and the interior designer and the architect of this thing. Like, of course I'm going to make 18% on the overall. Like, so I find that it actually logically makes more sense how you arrived at that fee than just this like arbitrary, like kind of market rate thing. Okay, question from Allie Phillips. How do you and Brooke handle your other consultants? Pay a percentage of the salary of the contractors? Interesting in how this plays into fees for both of you. We actually base it, basically, it depends on where you're at with us. Like if you're a little bit more senior, you'll probably get more of a percentage of the overall contract. But if you're in training, we have flat fees out. So not training, but like if you're not been with us for that long, then we have flat fees set. And then when it comes to like our, a lot of it, our day of stuff comes back to our event managers, and all of our jam staff, kind of each job sort of has a rate, and then there's bonuses for how much longer you've been with us. And obviously, like we look to put our more senior staff on our more like large scale and complex jobs. So for us, it's like a combination of all of that. So Brooke, I'm just curious,
Yeah, so for me, to be honest, I don't have any associates anymore. Now that I brought Heather on full time, it's just the two of us and we're the company. So I don't have any other associate planners going out under the Brooke Keegan brand. However,
clarify, we don't either. We actually, I just don't plan, and Myra doesn't plan. I design. Myra runs both of our companies, so we have event planners that work for us. So everybody works with an event planner. I don't actually plan events anymore. Like I just do the design, and then sort of obviously I do all the sales and the marketing, and Myra really oversees, like does a lot of the contract negotiations, but she's generally speaking really running Just About Married and kind of managing our vendor relationships. So we really have like planners that are staff planners. So when you work with us, like our whole point is that we're selling more of a design oriented firm. So like, if you like our aesthetic, then we have very capable planners that are awesome that you'll work with on the day-to-day.
Right. So for us, Heather and I do everything. It's her and I. So we do everything together, and Heather makes a salary. So that's how I pay her.
Do we have other questions? Hold on. I'm not seeing anything new come in. Okay. So one of the questions that I had is actually like what was the biggest hurdle to switching? Because like, I'm curious, like, I think that that's like, it can, even when it can psych you out, especially because given your market, and like it's great when somebody says that to you, you get your kind of wake up call, but then there's still that sort of like hurdle to change. So what was sort of the biggest hurdle to change?
For me, it was a huge change. I mean, I'm single and I support myself. So if I don't book a job, I'm not getting paid and I can't eat. So for me, I think I had to get in the right mindset of, if I switch to this model, I'm probably only going to book 1 out of every 20 people I talk to. And I have to be okay with that. Because if I book one of these percentage jobs, it would have taken 5 flat fee jobs of what I was charging before. So I had to wrap my head around that and being okay with people not being the right fit.
Right.
And I also thought, you know what? I'm my own boss. So if it doesn't work my first 5 pitches, or if this person comes to me, for instance, I just had a client come to us that is doing a 3-day Indian wedding. And they were like, we only want to charge, we will only pay a flat fee. We will not do a percentage. So we were like, okay. So Heather and I calculated a percentage of what their overall budget was supposed to be. And we said, okay, this is a flat fee. And of course, we gauged it a little high because her budget was $750,000 to $1 million. Right. So I think we ended up doing like an $875,000 percentage flat fee on it. We didn't book the job, totally fine. But to accommodate that client, we were willing to make it seem like it was a flat fee. Right. Yes, it was completely scary. But once the first person, the first one that booked us on a percentage model was amazing. I mean, amazing. And so for us, I think that gave us that little boost of confidence in being able to do that. And we had booked that wedding right after Engage. I want to say maybe like 3 weeks after I got, 2 or 3 weeks after I got back. Yeah. So it was amazing. And so that gave me the confidence. It was scary, but I just always knew in the back of my head, I'm my own boss. I can do anything I want. So if it doesn't work, I can go back to a flat fee. And that's what gave me the confidence in that I control my own destiny. And it's not about someone telling me this is how you have to do it. Yeah. But now that I've done it, you know, for instance, I just booked a wedding at a private country club here for 150 guests, and the budget came in. They wanted to be 150,000 all in. Okay. And that didn't meet our requirement, so it was a $25,000 flat fee is what we booked. We have now gone over budget by almost $40,000. Right. So now my fee changes into a percentage, and let me talk about that for a minute so that you guys can see how that happens. There's a tons of language in my contract, and I don't mind sharing it with all of you guys. If you want it, you can just email me and I can share it with you. But basically it states, you know, my fee is 18% of this overall budget, whichever the number is, and will be recalculated if you exceed $25,000. And then I actually put that physical number in there as well, so it's visual and they can see it. And it will be recalculated. If it's a minimum, it states that the minimum will be there, but if you exceed $140,000 budget, it now goes from a flat fee to a percentage, and we calculate the 18% on that.
Oh, that's interesting. So the way that we have it now, I mean, no one's been at our minimum, like everybody's been over, but like I basically will say like the fee is X, which is X amount over our minimum of blank. Right, like it's like I actually let them know how much they've exceeded our minimum, right? Based on our mutually agreed upon budget. And I make sure to say it's mutually agreed upon, like at this date, and it gets attached and sent with the contract. And then it basically says, and then I say, in the unlikely event, what I will say is like I say this because I always feel like I want them to know that we did do an exhaustive job of doing that budget. So it's like in the unlikely event that you choose to go over this budget and we just have like a general flat amount. For us, it's 50 because I feel like, to me, 50 is like, in my mind, I'm like, that could either mean that I'm like, you know, having to deal with like a private jet or something annoying that's a really one big ticket item, or it's a whole other event, right? Like, so to like, I like surround it less around what they're already spending than like, what could you do with 50 grand? That's like crazy, like, right? Like fireworks, like, I guess, like, but like, that's probably gonna be 25 or 30. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, if you really went 50, like you'd have to have either made a slew of decisions that made this more complicated, or you're having just a whole other auxiliary event. But for us, that's how we verbalize it. But like, we have a very verbal kind of contract. And so like, I don't know that I personally don't think that I would ever book somebody in at the minimum and then switch them over. I think I would always just say that their amount is based on the percentage model. It just happens to be our minimum, which is less than 18% of like, or, you know, whatever it might be, or like what, like, just because I don't think I'd like to deal with the complication of switching them over, but I get it.
But for me, for this client specifically, we were using house tables, house bars, house everything. And now I have 5 rental companies I'm dealing with, one for the dance floor. So it has turned into be so much more work. And so that's why if they exceed our minimum, we go to a percentage.
No, but I guess I just don't understand why you wouldn't then just have them be at, why it would switch to a percent. I mean, I think if they're going over their budget, doesn't it automatically, like, isn't it automatically on a percentage because they go over that amount that you agreed upon, or is it that they were less than that amount? Or
so they came in at what was their budget? 120. 120.
Okay. They want
at 25,000 at 140, and now we're exceeding that by about $50,000. These clients were super adamant they were not going to go over budget, and now through the planning process, we keep telling them this is over budget, this is over budget, and they're like, we're fine, and they're making those decisions.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's changing into a percentage, and they're aware of that and they know that, but they knew that at the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so Michelle Edgemont had a question, which is, do you think this type of method would work for other types of vendors? She specializes in design, decor, and flowers. My company doesn't do the planning. My fear is that I'd be designing their event before they hire me in order to show them the line item budget. So I'm going to say that I don't agree, and I can say that, like, for instance, like, Saipua sort of charges this way, but, like, not with a minimum. I mean, not really with a minimum, but, like, there's, like, there's basically, like, you can, let's say you're doing something at, like, they just looked at they were actually working on a proposal for us now for the plaza. Like, they may not know exactly what it is that they're going to execute, but they can give you a line itemed estimate that's, like, a ballpark of, like, that scale, and they can give you kind of a basic mood board. I think there might be some back end work in your own mind of, like, I could probably use, like, X inventory items or blah, blah, blah about your profitability, but I think that as you're calculating that line item budget, it's up to you how close you want to hold those cards to your vest in terms of, like, what those specific, like, you might actually get your wheels turning and be like, they're gonna, like, Brooke was saying, like, I know that they love all Casa de Parent, like, but you, the expert, knows pretty much what that kind of tabletop is gonna run you. And so, like, I think you may not have to show them every single thing that you're estimating for, but you can still come up with a qualified estimate for what that would be. And then, like, I can tell you in Saipua's case, like, they basically then charge, if they were doing a design, like, they would charge, like, a 15% on top of anything that they manage, like that they put their hand on, right? Which is, like, so I think that there is a way to do it, and instead of the minimum, it's more like my design fee is X, and then this is my estimate, and a percentage of what it is that you're managing, like, within that. So I can say, like, I think for design it does work without you giving away the whole design, but you do probably have to do a little bit of, I think you have to sell them a little bit on the creative idea, but, like, not as much as maybe you're thinking. That you still have to do the work, but you don't have to necessarily tell them all about it, is my take on that.
Yeah, so it's different for me. It's a couple times a year we'll work with an overall event designer because our client wants carpet, we want to drape, we want to rig chandeliers, we want to put up a tent, we want to do whatever it is. In that case, the designers that we work with, they do a full line itemed proposal before contracting with them. However, I know that, like, I think 100% of the time I bring my client to a designer, it's one designer and they're booking them already just because of conversations that we've had. But in that case, it's the overall line item, and then it's a flat 20% design fee on top of that. Now, I haven't crossed that bridge yet with my percentage, and it's going to be interesting when that happens, and I'm interested to hear from you, Xochitl, on that. But for me and my clients, it's mostly I'm piecing together 20 vendors to make this work as far as tabletop goes or anything else, any of the design elements. So I'm the designer, so I'm getting the percentage on that versus another designer. So,
right. I mean, to me, like, with floral, let's say, which is, like, kind of the only way that I collaborate with other people. If they want to have usually, if that's the case, and that's the way that it's a big enough install, like, where it merits a production cost, because you're basically dealing with the production cost is covering their transport, their staffing, like, right, of all the stuff that's going to happen to put in this big floral install. So, like, in that sense, I see it. What I would say, like, I can tell you that's how Saipua works when she's designing an event, which is what happens when she's working with planners, not planner designers. But I can say that if you're doing a wedding with somebody who's just a logistical planner, back to in Michelle's case, and you're doing the full design, I think you can definitely charge a percentage, not on the whole event, but as Brooke said, on the decor line item, like, and whatever is within that, right? Beth has another question. The client,
one more quick on that is I definitely would not do design boards. I definitely would not do any of that until after the client signs the contract with you and sends you a deposit. I think it's necessary to do a line item proposal with your 20% or whatever 15% design fee on it, but I wouldn't go any further than that until they actually sign on with you, in my personal opinion. However, I also do all the design boards for my clients, so I don't.
I'm going to disagree on that, and I'm just going to say that I've never had a client book a florist or us. Like, I mean, with us, like maybe because it's like a couple of services, but like a 5-image mood board is like just to say that you get it and that you understand is totally, I don't think that that's giving away the farm. It's not.
I guess my design boards are a lot more, I guess my design boards are a lot more detailed and like what I'm thinking.
I think what I was trying to, like my designs are like, you know, it's like a deck, like it's like a 20-slide deck.
Right.
I'm saying like a 5-image mood board in the loosest blog, most sense of the word, if that's going to get you $15,000 more on your, without you saying, oh, my ideas are this, this, and this. It's sort of like, I get what you're saying, and here are some reference images to prove that I get it. I don't see why, like, otherwise, like, how's the person, if you're charging in a totally different way, you want to make sure that that person feels like, I'm charging in a totally different way. It'll probably end up being more expensive to you, but I can guarantee you I get it. Like, do you know, and I think that's worth it. Even like, I've noticed this, like just every stationer now puts out a mood board when they send over proposals. So I just think it's like a way to affirm to the client, especially if you're charging more than the average person, that you understand what they're saying. So in that we might disagree. I don't think it's a full design. Like, I think it's like, just like, I get it, you know? As a matter of fact, Stephanie Fraser-Grimm, who couldn't be on today, but she's the one that if anybody needs to do these, it's BlogStomp. It's the world's easiest software to put together a 5. You take 5 screenshots, throw it in there, and it makes it look really, really nice in literally 2 seconds. Okay, so the client, this is from Beth. The client that said they wanted to be all in for 150K for 150 people at the country club. I may have gotten the exact amount wrong. Beth said they then added your 25K fee on top. So their all-in budget went up to 175. She's like, I'm just wondering, you're all into my clients. Okay.
No, so their all-in was 150, and that was including my fee.
Okay.
And
okay.
So I couldn't exceed 125 in the budget because my 25 had to be included in their overall fee. I said the way to obtain this is we have to use house linens, we have to use these kind of things, and now they've decided to deviate and go above and beyond and bring everything in for rentals, and that's a decision that they made on a case-by-case basis, which is fine, but that was also explained to them before they even signed a contract. So.
Right. So actually, that's a question for you. Like, when you had that budget that's tighter than what you normally work with, when you sent them that line item budget, did you explain to them what it is not? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, where it's like, this is not like what, like when you look on my site, this is not what this buys you. Like, I'm just curious, like.
So they showed me a lot of inspiration, and of course everything was like, it's a $250,000 wedding they wanted to spend $150,000 on. So what I did too is I explained, like, this is the dance floor you want, this is the dance floor that's in budget, and it was literally a side by side. Like, this is this, and this is what you want. You want these. You want hedging behind and in front of the band, this is what the stage is going to look like without that, because we can't afford that. So I gave them visuals. I find my clients are super visual, which most of our clients are. And so for me, it was like, even though you want this, this is what this price gets you. Even though you want this, this is what price gets you. And so they agreed upon it all. They said, okay, well, that's what's in the budget. We're going to make it work. Now they found funds to be able to allocate towards the more important things.
I mean, I think that that's part of the whole thing, is that if you position it to clients, don't you find that half of it is like letting them know, like, this is my fee, but like you can have in this case, like you can have a wedding on this fee, but if you want to spend more, it's more like, I'm going to let you consciously make that choice every step of the way. But like, then at a certain point, it does have a financial ramification because it's not the same job. I think if you present it in an educational way, I think that people receive it in a better way.
Well, and also this client, it's their only daughter. They've never planned an event before. So until they had this thing in their mind, and then when you present to them what that budget is that they wanted to so strictly stick to, and they look at from a case-by-case basis. It's an education process, right? That's half of what we do. So it's like, yes, I just want to reiterate, this is what we budgeted for, but this is what you're choosing. We're $2,500 over on budget for the custom decals on this dance floor that you want.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, but we're willing to spend that. Great, then you're willing to spend that. But yes, it's definitely an education process.
One question to that point about the education process, and also a little bit about putting stuff out up front. Leslie had left a question on Facebook, Leslie Price from In Any Event, that was basically saying, like, about how much she was worried about how much work it would end up being, like putting together kind of all this budgeting, and like, what if they then don't book you? And one of the things that I wrote back to her, and I'm curious if you find this, is that by the time I've actually gotten to contract on this like percentage amount, they are so invested in the relationship because we've been providing them with information, and it's like, you clearly seem like you know what you're doing. You've been able to demonstrate your expertise and walk them through something. I've actually found that they're so into it by the time I've given them that budget that like I found it easier. Like I found it to almost be like the contract ends up feeling a little bit more like a formality like since then. But like, I'm curious your experience. But it's to your point, it's like that verbal yes, like I want to move forward. Like I think like it's a very strong yes, right?
Right. Yeah. So for instance, we're dealing with a client right now, and she's like, okay, can you put a hold on this venue and this venue? And can you check out this? Can you check out that? And we want a full budget. And it's like, okay, well, are you ready to move forward with us? And they said, we're not ready yet. And I said, well, then we aren't going to budget yet. Like I'm not going to just give it to you just so that you have it. It needs to be a solid lead. But as far as the budgeting goes for us, and I hate to say it this way, but like we do this all the time. Putting together a budget for me, it might take 15 or 20 minutes. Like when I see what I know that you like and I pull out a calculator and we're dealing with things, I've been doing this for 12 years, so I know what things cost, right? Now, if we start getting, and the caveat always is now if you decide to do custom draping with a pattern and this and that and this, of course, that's going to exceed the budget. But for what we've discussed right now, this is, and what you guys want, this is what it's going to be. But for us to put together a comprehensive budget from start to finish, it might be 20 minutes, and taking the 20 minutes to do that budget versus getting paid 5 to 6 to 7 times the amount of me normally on a flat fee, I'll take the 20 minutes to do it.
I think it's worth all of the work. Like what I would say is like, especially this year, for some reason, we've just had a lot of weddings in locations where we haven't worked before. So I'd say probably it's taken me a little bit more time than 20 minutes, only because I haven't booked transportation on Nantucket, and I want to make sure that I'm not what I don't want, I think, are surprises, because I feel like the erosion of trust comes with surprises happening. So if I'm like, I promise you this is a pretty comprehensive budget, like I feel very good that you won't exceed this by 50 grand. Like I'll like, but that said, if somebody called me about the Hudson Valley, I could do that, like you said, in 20 minutes, like given what they said and like where we've worked, like totally, right? Like, so I think it's gonna, depending on what you're going after, like the transition to this can be easier than you think. But to Brooke's point, I don't know how other people do their consults. I think what was so shocking to me when you said that is about when we met, and but when we had that dinner, you told me about this, was that I was like, I do a lot of this way anyway. I just am not charging on it. Like, it's, and I think, having come from corporate events and then also doing corporate events still, like, I think the way that I started to see it is like, I would do this much work for a corporate job easy. Like, as a matter of fact, to get most corporate jobs, you have to do so much more work. Like, and you have to put together a really good corporate client. You basically give away the farm, and they're sitting there with everybody's ideas sitting in front of them and just deciding whose they like better. And you're doing it because you're like, it's a middle of the week job. It could be return business, blah, blah, blah. Like, and so like the idea that I think if you have the potential to make that much more money, it's still, and our flat fees was pretty high, but it's still, to your point, wasn't commensurate with the amount of work, because it didn't ever work out to that. It was always way less. It was like 10 to 15% of the budget. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like not even 15%. Like that'd be surprising. Like, so it's like, I think the idea of being able to actually get paid what you're commensurate to what you're doing, I think it's also put me in a better in a better mood too at work. Okay, Allie said that thanks so much. She has to run, but thank you. I like come up as a question. Do you have other stuff you want to add, like, or do we have any last questions that we're wrapping up?
Yeah, I think you also, it's easy for us to say just do it. I mean, I think you honestly have to figure out your business and your business model. A flat fee for you might still be best. I think it just depends on how many events you want to take a year, what your ideal market is. Like, are you staying locally? Do you need to compete with the other planners that are flat fee in your market? Like, or are you doing more destination stuff and things that bigger produced events that you could go to a percentage model? Or you can decide when you take the meeting with the client. I mean, I think there has to be a lot of consistency. And so it can't just be like all over the place, but I think it's circumstantial, and being business owners, we can make that decision whenever we want. Totally. And one thing that I think that's such a great point that like we always talk about, like it's like it is whatever we want it to be. But like I definitely think like another thing that was funny when I got back from that Hawaii trip, I said to Mara, I was like, when we book one more job, I think we should try this. Like we should try switching to the percentage model. And like 3 days went by and we're like, or just try it now. Like, so like, but that is a thought. Like if you feel like, okay, this year is shaping up really nicely. And like, now I'm starting to look into next year. I'm looking into like I'm filling in my holes in the fall, whatever it might be. Like we tend to have shorter engagements. That's that might be the time that you decide to experiment with it when you don't feel like you have as much on the line. I think it makes you a more confident salesperson also when you feel like, when you're like not as invested in having to get the job versus like, I know over the course of, 13 years in business, like obviously there've been times where we really needed the job. So you're less like risk taking and more accommodating. But if you're in a place where you feel a little secure, that's a good time to play around with how that might be. And to your point, it may be a little bit of trial and error, figuring out what's what's the minimum, what's the percentage that works best for you. We have a question from Amy Nichols, which is, how do you charge for the welcome events and brunches when you're in a destination? We wrap them all up into our overall budget. Me too. So the percentage goes on everything. It's all wrapped into one big budget. Also, this is the one thing that I wasn't super prepared on when I booked my very first percentage client is I wish that I would have done, I ended up booking it, which is great, but go in knowing your numbers and be super confident with it. Because if you're wishy-washy about it, the client isn't going to get it. You have to prove that you're worth it and that that's what you're doing. Know your numbers. If your minimum is $10,000, what is that percentage? What does that budget look like? Know all these numbers and have confidence when you sell it. And if they don't buy it, they don't buy it, but then you can make a decision on what you want to do. And I always do, like, if we do that and they seem like they're okay, and then we come out with it and they're like, ooh, I don't know, we were thinking, it's like, what were you thinking? And if they come down and maybe it's a $5,000 difference, okay, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Is this a great location? It's going to be a beautiful wedding. I can make the decision from there. But if they come and say, we're looking at spending $10,000 on a planner, it's like, well, we're definitely not the right fit for you. So.
Right. Right. And I think that's a really great point, is never underestimate how little people are actually processing those numbers. Like you could say over the phone or in an email, like it's our fee, our minimum is this, like we charge on a percentage, it's a minimum of blank. And they'll be like, oh, okay, great. Like, let's meet. And they've not done any of that math to realize that that would mean typically X, right? Like, it's like, so it's really, it's interesting and like, important, I think, to as Brooke said, know your numbers, because you'll be really surprised. And I think, I'm sure you said that you do a fair amount of vetting. We do like quite a bit of vetting before we do the in-person meeting, just because of that point. Like you're like, I want to make sure this is like, I'm really explaining it to you like very, very like, so that there's no misunderstanding here, because there's nothing more frustrating, especially we don't have to drive, but I always think about like if you're driving to meet somebody for an hour and then like you get there and they're like, oh, I only have $100,000. Yeah. So like I think if you're gonna move to this model, I always say like it's really good to vet. And the other thing that I would say is like I always tell people, like, I'm like, you could talk to 7 different planners, especially planner designers, especially in New York, like, and anywhere really, and everyone's going to run their business in a totally different way. So you can't really, I mean, because people will then ask a lot of questions about why other people are running their businesses the way that they're running. It's like, all you can really do is sit against your model, and I think explain to them that there's no like license to do this. Nobody has to run their business in a particular way. Like, and so like they should make sure that they choose a way that feels comfortable for them. But I think if you sell it the right way, they'll feel comfortable.
And I do want to do one more thing to we're wrapping up, but so Sheila and I come from markets that are super different. So I know everyone else that are in different, we're in New York City and in LA, Orange County area, and our clients have ridiculous amounts of money. And that's just comes with the territory that we're in. So I know, like, you know, I was talking to a couple this past weekend, we were in Dallas for the birthday party project. And it's like, oh my gosh, if we book a luxury wedding for us is $100,000, like that is a lot of money for us in our market. It's the same thing. Maybe your flat fee, or maybe your minimum's not 25 because it's not scalable, exactly. And maybe it's lower and you're still on a percentage. So I know it's easy for you guys to think like, oh, they have, you know, they would deal with $500,000 budgets. We don't ever get that. We're scaled because of that. You know, because of that, of our price range. So I'm a believer that this model can still work if you're working with budgets that are $100,000 to $200,000 or whatever that may be. So I don't want you to think that we're disregarding that at all, because I know that we are definitely live in the two most expensive places in the United States. So. Yeah,
and I specifically had a conversation with somebody on Facebook about this. I definitely think that even if you're working with an $80,000 budget and you want to ask for $8,000, but you're typically like discounting to 5 or 65 or 7, like if your minimum then becomes 8, like you're like, yes. It makes it much harder for people to negotiate with you, because you're like, my minimum's 8 and then it's a percentage of the budget based on this. So it's actually just a better, and even if it's just 10%, like at least you're ensuring that if they go over that budget, you're still making your 10%. Because what I find is that in the process with flat fee and people negotiating and then trying to close the deal and blah, 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 you end up often negotiating yourself sometimes down to something that starts at sort of near 10%. And then by the time they're done spending, you're well under that. And no one should really be working for less than 10% of the budget, given all the responsibility and stress that we have. So I think it's a good model, no matter what budget you're working on, to ensure that you're at least getting your 10%.
Right. And also one more thing. So what Xochitl and I do is full service. So this is pricing based on full service, not on a day of, which, you know, day of here in California, I don't know how much you guys charge, but it's about $35,000 to $4,000. Yeah. And then partial service is anywhere from 65 to 95 in our area for partial. And then full service, people are usually starting now at like 12,500 and to 15.
Beth wants us to know that she's moving to LA. She said, kidding.
Well, you know, it is interesting though, because I would say that 90% of our clients don't even live here. I mean, it's very, you know, I've been a little bit different. You know, we've always done destination weddings because we've always been the destination. Right. Or I've gone somewhere else. And I think it just, a lot of it, I think, has to do just with you just working so hard and having that type of being in the circle of people that we're in now, to kind of gain that type of clientele too. So, but it doesn't hurt to live in Newport Beach.
Right. Thank you so much. This is really good. Thank you everybody for watching and your awesome questions. This is really, I think it's something that can really help everybody without doing a single extra thing, can help everybody package your business in a way that'll just be more profitable, which is why it was so exciting. It's like, it doesn't involve investing in stationery books or like the 90 million other ways in which we've all tried to add on to our revenue. Like, it's like you're actually just getting paid what you deserve. And I thought that was the best part about it. So I have to thank you for the gift, Brooke.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for listening. And I mean, it's new territory for me too. I mean, it's been, you know, just about 7 months. So I'm talking about it with everyone just to learn about everyone's process and what they do better. I mean, you adopted this kind of from me, but you're doing your own thing too. And I think that's what's important. And if anyone has any questions directly, you guys can email me. It's brooke@brookekeegan.com, or you guys can call me. My number's on my website too. So I'm free to answer any questions you have.
Okay, and then I'll be posting this on alwaysvlogsmade.com. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, bye.
Bye.